My parents taught us to work hard and always put others before ourselves. Work hard and do good things for other people. Um, we were raised with that, a strong value in education. And back before social entrepreneurship was actually a term, they just did it. They did it because it was the right thing to do. Help others that are less fortunate. Use the talents and skills that you've been given and developed to help make the world a better place. So they taught it just by doing. They were great examples. Dad was a general practitioner who then went into emergency medicine, ran an emergency room in Long Beach at a community hospital, and noticed that there were a lot of people who came to the emergency room who really didn't have emergencies, but didn't have a primary care doctor to see. So he opened a clinic, and that ended up growing to a dozen clinics and more, and then eventually became Molina Healthcare. You know, there was a time when I was a new doctor in practice, and I was working in Placerville, which is in the Sierras, in a rural clinic. And I had a patient come in, and he was brought in by his neighbors. And it was a situation where he was diabetic and not doing well. He didn't feel well. And so I started talking to him as I'd been trained. I was a new doctor and went through all the usual questions. And then I found that he actually lived in the forest and lived in what we would probably call a shack in the forest. And when he needed care, he would go out into his front yard area and fire off a shotgun. His neighbors, nearest neighbors, hearing the shotgun blast, would come and get him and take him to the doctor. And I had to adjust how I approached him and how I treated him as treating someone that really didn't have a lot of the conveniences like electricity and things like that you or I might have. And it was there that I learned really firsthand that you really need to meet people where they are. And I did. And he did well within the constraints of his life. And there are more people in the world who come from all sorts of different places, whether it's their social background or their physical background, where they're coming from, that are different than alike. You just have to meet everybody where they are.
I just remember us slowly adding more offices. I remember them going out and applying for new contracts. Our one office started out in a very small, we were literally in the back office of the doctor's office. And then we moved to a business center. And, that went from 5-10 people to moving downtown. And it just slowly, organically grew as they expanded. And, but what I will tell you, and I don't know if this is typical, but it never lost that family feeling. I know that sounds a little, I don't know if it sounds trite, but it was always about the patient first. And Dad ensured that by making sure that it was a doctor who was a medical director, and as it grew, it was different people. It wasn't just Dad were the ones making those decisions. It didn't come down to the finances. While that was important, it was always the mantra, the patient comes first. I don't know that there was a particular aha moment. I think it was all those little moments building on it. I saw that Mom, I remember there was some huge thing called the, what was that called? Like the milk drive? Anyway, it was a huge PTA. The entire city got around it. And it was a lot of time and effort and hard work. But every year Mom was part of this event. I know that, like I said, with Dad, it was have an open house that didn't work out, and just that perseverance. And it wasn't always easy, but you did it. So I think it was all those little moments along my life that it just became second nature. I think that learning about other people's cultures, getting to know people, that's how relationships are built. If you can find something in common with other people, that makes everybody stronger. That makes everybody feel valued. That makes everybody come together. I think that it's a way to honor both my dad and my mom. It's a way for people to see that this is really, I don't know, I feel like it's not that unusual. We're a hardworking family. We were able to build something pretty incredible, but we're not that different from other people. It's about hard work. It's about family. It's about relationships. So the legacy, I guess that's the legacy that I want. I want that commonality.
From a very early age, we were taught that family is the most important thing. It's about making sure that when everything goes to hell, and I think that that happens to everybody in their life, that the people that you can turn to, the people that will be there for you are your family. And so we want to instill that tradition, that sense of family, and that's why we named it after our father. And I think that this is something that our kids, grandkids, great-grandkids can look at and appreciate and share and say, this is what you get for hard work. This is how you make your stamp in life. I would just say that I am very blessed to belong to a family that is as close as we are, and that is as giving, both personally and professionally. And I am very humbled by my siblings, and when I look at what they've achieved, that's an incredible credit to my parents. You wouldn't know it by talking to me, but the Molinas really are very humble people. And I think that's part of how our parents raised us. Don't talk about it, do it. You don't have to brag. And so what I hope, and I think that's a very common Latino trait, and so what I hope is for others to see this and say, hey, they did it, I can do it, and they'll contribute as well.
Helping others is very important to my family, and that was a cornerstone. If you can, where you can, when you can, help. My mom used to say little, do much. When you help, it wasn't to get other people's attention, it wasn't to get glory or someone to notice you. It was to help because that's the right thing to do. I think that we see our culture through our values. Again, family first. To me, that's a big part of my Latino experience and my Latino culture. It's family first and taking care of your family. There is always the food. I love to cook, and I was cooking last night, so food is on my mind. But it was important, and we have a lot of the same traditions we've had every year for holidays. We had the same dinner we've had for Thanksgiving. I've had the same dinner for 47 years. It never strays. We have the same traditions for Christmas. We mark a lot of our holidays and a lot of our gatherings by food and things you cook at certain times of the year. And I think it's important. I think it's nice. It connects you to the past. Giving back is important to us. But I think it's exciting, and I think people will be interested to come and see what the Latino culture is about and how Latinos have added to the fabric of America. I don't think that a lot of people really see past some of the generalities. We all know we've given a lot of great cuisine, but there's so much more that we have contributed to the history of America and what's going on today. And I think people would enjoy learning about that.
And I wrote this essay saying that I wanted to be a doctor like my dad. I got the thing back, and the guy had written across the top in red ink, hopelessly unrealistic. I got a D-. And I thought, oh. So I wasn't going to tell anyone after that I wanted to be a doctor. So then I went off to college, and I went to see the counselor at Long Beach City College, and I said, I want to be a doctor. What do I need to do? And she looked at me and she said, no one from City College ever goes to medical school. So I thought, okay. I got a little book from the bookstore on how to go to medical school. I followed the directions, took all the classes. I went to Long Beach State. I go to the pre-med counselor. I want to go to medical school. He looks at me and says, you're never going to get into medical school. So at that point, I decided to quit asking people for advice and help, and I applied to medical school and got in. And you know, the funny thing about this woman who was the counselor who told me nobody from City College goes to medical school, she was the same counselor my father had 30 years earlier. So I guess she forgot that my father made it. The Latino population is very diverse. You know, you've got people from Mexico, from South America, Central America. You've got people like my friends the Chavezes, whose family has been in New Mexico for hundreds of years. It's a very diverse group with lots of different stories, and they've made lots of contributions to the culture and to just the intellectual life of our country, and it's been missed, it's been overlooked. And now I think it's time to tell those stories and for people to tell their children and their grandchildren where they came from and what it meant. You know, you talk about the American dream, coming here to build a better life, and that's what my family did. They came here from Mexico. You know, I have been very interested in history, and especially the history of this family. And I think the legacy is, you know, what lives on after you're gone. And it's so easy, and we so quickly forget from one generation to the next, you know, what the people here before us did and how they struggled. And nowadays we have life relatively easy. But there was a time when, you know, especially for my family, being immigrants, not having a lot of money, when my grandparents, my great-grandparents came, they didn't speak English. My great-grandfather, even though he became head of the bank in Yuma, was never really terribly fluent in English, and so he relied on his sons to help him. So I think there were lots of barriers they had to overcome, but they persevered. And I think the legacy that I want to leave people is persevere.